It is 10:06 p.m. on June 7th, 2021. On a dispatch line in Colleton County, South Carolina, a man's voice breaks through, frantic, gasping for air. "My wife and child have been shot badly. I don't think they're breathing." The caller is Alex Murdaugh, a fourth-generation attorney from one of the most powerful legal families in the history of the American South. The voice on the line will soon belong to a man the state of South Carolina believes pulled the trigger himself. Within minutes, blue lights will cut through the dark of a 1,770-acre hunting estate called Moselle. Within hours, the bodies of Maggie Murdaugh, 52, and her younger son, Paul, 22, will be photographed where they fell, beside a row of dog kennels, under a moss-draped canopy of South Carolina pine. Within 2 years, the man who called 911 that night will be convicted of murdering them both. And within 5 years, in a twist almost nobody saw coming, that conviction will collapse. This is the story of the Murdaugh family. A century of unchecked power. A trail of suspicious deaths stretching back years before the murders that made headlines around the world. A hidden addiction, a multi-million-dollar fraud, and a case so strange that even after the verdict, after the sentencing, after what looked like the end, the story refused to end. To understand what happened at Moselle, you have to understand what came before it. You have to understand the name Murdaugh and what that name meant in the South Carolina Lowcountry for nearly 100 years. The Lowcountry is a region of marshland, slow rivers, and small towns strung along South Carolina's southern coast: Hampton, Colleton, Beaufort, and Jasper counties. For most of the 20th century and into the 21st, this region had one law firm and one family, sitting at the center of its justice system. Alex Murdaugh's great-grandfather became a regional prosecutor, what South Carolina calls the solicitor, for the 14th Judicial Circuit in 1920. His son took the position after him. Then his son's son took it. For close to 90 years, 3 consecutive generations of Murdaugh men controlled the office that decided who in this region got prosecuted and who didn't. Alongside that public office, the family ran a private law firm. It became one of the most successful personal injury practices in the state, eventually known as PMPED: Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Eltzroth, and Dietrich. The firm built its reputation and its fortune by representing victims of catastrophic injury, winning large settlements, often from insurance companies, often from cases involving local hospitals, trucking companies, and product defects. In the small towns of the Lowcountry, this combination of prosecutorial power and private legal influence meant the Murdaugh name carried weight that few families in America could claim. Police, judges, and juries in this region had grown up under Murdaugh authority. Locals describe an unwritten understanding. In Hampton County, you did not cross a Murdaugh. Alex Murdaugh was born into this inheritance in 1968. He followed the family path. He went to law school. He joined the family firm. He married Maggie Branstetter in 1994, and the two of them had 2 sons, Buster, born in 1995, and Paul, born in 1999. By every outward measure, Alex Murdaugh had built the life his family's name promised him. He was a respected trial attorney. He owned a sprawling hunting property. He was active in his community, well-liked, well-connected, generous with his time and his money. Neighbors described him as warm, easygoing, the kind of man who'd stop and talk to anyone. But behind that image, a different story was unfolding. And the first signs of it would not come from Alex himself. They would come from the deaths that started piling up around his family, years before anyone outside the Lowcountry had ever heard the name Murdaugh. Stephen Smith, 2015. In July of 2015, a 19-year-old named Stephen Smith was found dead in the middle of a rural road in Hampton County. He had suffered massive head trauma. His shoes were found neatly placed beside his body, untouched, Murdaugh family member in Stephen Smith's death. But in June of 2021, the same month Maggie and Paul were murdered, South Carolina's state police agency, SLED, announced it was reopening the Stephen Smith case, citing information uncovered during the Moselle murder investigation. Years later, his body would be exhumed for a fresh autopsy. As of this recording, his death remains officially classified as a homicide and remains unsolved. Gloria Satterfield, 2018. Gloria Satterfield worked for the Murdaugh family for more than 20 years. She helped raise Buster and Paul. She was, by every account, treated as something close to family. In February of 2018, Satterfield died after what the family described as a trip and fall accident at the Moselle estate. She allegedly tripped over the family dogs at the top of a staircase. She was taken to the hospital and died several days later from her injuries. No autopsy was performed. Her death was not initially investigated as suspicious. What happened next was not about how Gloria Satterfield died. It was about what Alex Murdaugh did in the aftermath. Alex personally encouraged Satterfield's two adult sons to file a wrongful death claim against his own homeowner's insurance policy, positioning himself as their advocate, the family friend who made sure they were taken care of. He recommended they hire his close friend and fellow attorney, Corey Fleming, to handle the case. The case settled for approximately $4.3 million. Gloria Satterfield's sons never saw that money. Prosecutors later determined that Alex Murdaugh and Corey Fleming provided the settlement funds meant for the children of the woman who had helped raise Alex's own sons, into accounts Murdaugh controlled. Corey Fleming would later plead guilty to conspiring with Murdaugh to defraud the Satterfield estate and was sentenced to nearly 4 years in federal prison. Gloria Satterfield's death itself has never been ruled a homicide, but the scheme built on top of it defined for the first time publicly a pattern that would come to define Alex Murdaugh: a willingness to exploit tragedy, even tragedy involving people close to him, for financial gain. Mallory Beach and the boat crash, February 2019. On the night of February 23rd into the early morning of February 24th, 2019, a group of young people left a Murdaugh family boat dock for a night out, an oyster roast, then a waterfront bar in Beaufort, South Carolina. Among them was Paul Murdaugh, then 19 years old, and 19-year-old Mallory Beach. Surveillance footage and witness testimony later established that Paul Murdaugh had been drinking heavily that night. According to those who treated him afterward, he was visibly intoxicated, slurring his words, unsteady on his feet. Despite this, Paul was behind the wheel of his family's boat when it slammed into a bridge piling on the way back from the bar. The boat ran aground. Several passengers were thrown or scrambled clear, several injured. Mallory Beach was thrown into the water. Her body was not recovered for several days. Paul Murdaugh was, 2 months after the crash, charged with 3 felonies, including boating under the influence resulting in death. He pleaded not guilty. The delay between the crash and the charges, and the relatively light initial handling of the case by local law enforcement, drew criticism from a community that suspected the Murdaugh name was once again insulating a family member from consequences. Mallory Beach's family filed a civil wrongful death lawsuit. That lawsuit named not just Paul, but Alex Murdaugh as well. And as part of the litigation, Alex Murdaugh was expected to be forced to disclose his personal finances under oath. Finances that, unknown to almost everyone around him, including his own family, were not what they appeared to be. The first hearing in Paul Murdaugh's boating case was scheduled for the same week that Maggie and Paul were killed. To understand the motive prosecutors would later argue for the murders themselves, you need to understand what Alex Murdaugh was hiding by June of 2021. In the early 2000s, Murdaugh became addicted to oxycodone. The addiction, according to his own later testimony, escalated for years, consuming, by some estimates, tens of thousands of dollars a day in pills and workers and accident victims who had come to him in some of the worst moments of their lives, trusting a fourth-generation Murdaugh attorney to protect their interests. He funneled settlement checks meant for clients into fake accounts with names deceptively similar to his firm's real accounts. He forged signatures. He lied to partners. He lied to family. By the time the scheme was uncovered, investigators determined that Alex Murdaugh had stolen more than $12 million over the course of roughly a decade. This theft remained almost entirely hidden until the events of 2021 forced it into the light. First through the financial disclosure looming over the Mallory Beach lawsuit, and then, catastrophically, through the murders of his own wife and son. Now we return to the night that changed everything, reconstructed using cell phone data, vehicle telemetry, and witness testimony later presented at trial. 6:04 p.m. Paul Murdaugh calls a friend, Will Loving. 6:09 p.m. Maggie Murdaugh texts Paul. She mentions she's getting a foot massage. She tells him their housekeeper Blanca has cooked dinner, country fried steak and macaroni and cheese. 6:17 p.m. Paul's phone is pinging cell towers near Beaufort, moving toward Moselle, the family's hunting property in Islandton. Throughout the early evening, the family exchanges ordinary, unremarkable messages. About dinner, about plans, about nothing that suggests anything is wrong. 6:52 p.m. Alex Murdaugh's cell phone goes dark. It will not ping off any cell tower again until 9:04 p.m. More than 2 hours of silence on a phone that, before and after this window, was active and connected. 7:57 p.m. Paul receives a reply from his cousin about a Snapchat video. They discuss needing straps on the tree, an apparent reference to hunting equipment. 8:05 to 8:14 p.m. Paul's phone location shows movement from a cabin near the kennels toward the main house. 8:31 p.m. Maggie's phone is unlocked. She reads a text message. Her phone locks again and will not be unlocked again, ever. 8:44 to 8:45 p.m. This is the moment that would become the single most important piece of evidence in the entire case. Paul Murdaugh takes out his phone at the dog kennels and films a video, ostensibly of the family's dogs. In the background of that video, 3 voices can be heard. Investigators and later witnesses at trial identified those 3 voices as Paul, Maggie, and Alex. Alex Murdaugh would tell investigators repeatedly in the days and weeks after the murders that he had not been at the kennels that evening. He maintained, under multiple separate interviews, that the last time he had seen his wife and son alive was earlier that evening at the house. 8:49 p.m. Both Paul's and Maggie's phones lock. Neither will ever be unlocked again. Based on this digital reconstruction, combined with forensic and pathology evidence presented at trial, prosecutors argued the murders took place in this narrow window, sometime between roughly 8:49 and 9:06 p.m. The coroner's office placed time of death between approximately 9 and 9:30 p.m., based on body temperature estimates taken at the scene, estimates the defense would later argue were imprecise. 10 p.m. Alex Murdaugh's GMC Suburban arrives back at the main house at Moselle, according to OnStar GPS data later extracted and presented by SLED investigators. Murdaugh had been, by his own account, visiting his elderly parents that evening. His mother, who suffers from dementia, and his father, who was at that time terminally ill. 10:05 p.m. Murdaugh's vehicle begins moving from the house toward the kennels. 10:06 p.m. Alex Murdaugh calls 911. "My wife and child have been shot badly," he tells the dispatcher, his voice breaking. "I don't think they're breathing." When deputies and EMS personnel arrive at Moselle minutes later, they find Maggie and Paul Murdaugh near the dog kennels. Both have been shot multiple times, in the head, the wrists, and the chest. Investigators determined that two different firearms were used, an assault-style rifle in Maggie's killing and a shotgun in Paul's. Maggie's cell phone is missing from the scene. It will be found the following day, discarded along a road near the property. A road that, according to vehicle telemetry data presented at trial, Alex Murdaugh's own Suburban had driven past that night. No murder weapon is ever recovered. There are no eyewitnesses. And there is, at this point, no named suspect. In the days following the murders, the surviving Murdaugh family publicly closed ranks. Alex's brothers, John Marvin and Randy Murdaugh IV, appeared on national television, describing Alex as distraught, devastated, a grieving husband and father. They told interviewers they did not believe their brother was capable of what investigators were beginning to suspect. Alex Murdaugh and his surviving son, Buster, announced a $100,000 reward for information leading to a conviction in the killings, publicly framing the case as an open mystery, with an unknown killer or killers still out there. Behind the scenes, the investigation was turning a different direction. Investigators began quietly examining Murdaugh's financial dealings and found a man whose life, beneath the surface, on September the 3rd, 2021, 3 months after the murders, Alex Murdaugh was forced to resign from the law firm his family had controlled for generations. The firm later confirmed it had discovered Murdaugh had illegally taken millions of dollars from the firm and its clients. The very next day, September 4th, 2021, Alex Murdaugh called 911 again. This time, he claimed he had been shot in the head while changing a tire on the side of a rural road. He survived. The wound, investigators later determined, was superficial, and the shooting was not random violence. It was staged. State investigators concluded that Murdaugh had orchestrated his own shooting as part of an elaborate insurance fraud scheme, enlisting a man named Curtis Edward Smith, a relative of a former client, and someone Murdaugh had reportedly supplied drugs to shoot him. The plan, prosecutors said, was for Alex to die, allowing his surviving son Buster to collect on a $10 million life insurance policy, at a moment when Alex's financial crimes were on the verge of total exposure. The plan failed. Murdaugh survived with non-life-threatening injuries, but the scheme blew open the truth that had been building for months. This was a man capable of staggering deception, capable of staging violence against his own body to protect his family financially, and a man whose carefully maintained image had been a performance for years. Within weeks, Alex Murdaugh entered rehab for opioid addiction. Soon after, he was indicted on dozens of financial crimes, charges that would eventually number in the dozens across both state and federal courts, accusing him of defrauding clients, his own law firm, and even the family of Gloria Satterfield, the housekeeper who had helped raise his sons. It was against this backdrop, a disbarred, financially ruined, opioid-addicted man facing the total collapse of the only identity he had ever known, that investigators began to seriously consider the possibility that Alex Murdaugh had killed his own wife and son. On July the 14th, 2022, more than a year after the murders, a Colleton County grand jury indicted Alex Murdaugh on 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. Mark King, chief of the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, addressed the public that day. Today is one more step in a long process for justice for Maggie and Paul, he said. Murdaugh pleaded not guilty. His defense team stated publicly that he believed the real killer, or killers, remained at large. Prosecutors announced they would not seek the death penalty. Instead, they would seek life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The indictment alleged a specific and chilling theory that Alex Murdaugh shot his wife Maggie with a rifle and his son Paul with a shotgun at close range at the family's dog kennels, and that he did so deliberately to escape the consequences closing in around him. The trial began weeks, the courtroom became one of the most closely watched legal proceedings in recent American history. Broadcast live, dissected daily by legal commentators and true crime podcasters around the world. Leading the prosecution was Creighton Waters, chief counsel to the South Carolina Attorney General's office, joined by attorney John Meters. The defense was led by two of South Carolina's most experienced criminal defense attorneys, Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin. Presiding over the case was Judge Clifton Logan. The prosecution's case. The state's case rested almost entirely on circumstantial evidence. There was no murder weapon. There were no eyewitnesses. What prosecutors had instead was a meticulously reconstructed digital timeline and a man who had lied repeatedly to investigators about his whereabouts that night. The centerpiece of the prosecution's case was the kennel video, the footage Paul Murdaugh recorded on his phone at 8:44 p.m., capturing three voices in the background. A digital forensics expert brought in to analyze the audio identified one of those voices as belonging to Alex Murdaugh. This evidence directly contradicted what Murdaugh had told investigators repeatedly across multiple interviews in the months after the murders, that he had not been at the kennels that night and had not seen his wife and son alive after leaving the house earlier that evening. Prosecutors brought forward a SLED special agent, Peter Rudofsky, who walked the jury through an extraordinarily detailed digital timeline. Cell phone tower pings, OnStar vehicle telemetry from Murdaugh's GMC Suburban, building access logs from the family law firm, and call records pulled from the phones of Paul, Maggie, Alex, and other family members. Rudofsky demonstrated that Murdaugh's vehicle had, on the night of the murders, driven at speeds well above the posted 55-mile-per-hour limit on rural roads. Faster, notably, than Murdaugh had driven on that same stretch of road earlier that same day on his way to and from work. Perhaps most damaging of all was a recorded interview SLED agents had conducted with Murdaugh on June 21st, 2021, 2 weeks after the murders, while driving him in a vehicle. On the recording played for the jury, Murdaugh could be heard saying of his son, "It's just so bad. I did him so bad." The defense argued the statement was being taken out of context, that it reflected a grieving father's guilt and regret, not a confession. Prosecutor Creighton Waters emphasized the line to the jury regardless, letting the ambiguity of the words hang in the room. Prosecutors also brought forward witnesses to establish motive. Former colleagues and clients testified about Murdaugh's deteriorating financial situation in the weeks before the murders. A bank executive testified about how the institution had first discovered Murdaugh's theft. The state's argument was direct. Alex Murdaugh's decade of financial crimes was on the verge of total exposure. Through the looming Mallory Beach civil lawsuit, through scrutiny at his own law firm, through mounting questions about missing settlement funds, and the murders of Maggie and Paul were committed to generate sympathy, to distract from the coming collapse, and to delay the reckoning Murdaugh knew was coming. The state rested its case on February 17, 2023, after nearly a month of testimony. The defense's case. The defense moved immediately and aggressively. Their first witness was the Colleton County coroner, who testified under cross-examination. Alex takes the stand. On February 23, 2023, Alex Murdaugh did something defense attorneys rarely recommend in a murder trial. He took the stand in his own defense. He denied directly and repeatedly shooting his wife and son. "I didn't shoot my wife or my son," he told the jury, breaking down as his own attorney walked him through the events of that night. But under questioning, he was forced to confirm what the camera video had already revealed, that the third voice captured at 8:44 p.m. was, in fact, his own. He admitted for the first time publicly that he had been at the kennels that night, directly contradicting months of statements to investigators, his own family, and the public. "I lied about being down there," Murdaugh told the courtroom, "and I'm so sorry that I did." He attributed the lies to what he described as paranoid thinking, a product of his opioid addiction, testimony that his own defense team would lean on throughout the trial, arguing that his pattern of dishonesty, however damning it looked, was the behavior of a drug-addicted man in panic, not a murderer covering his tracks. On the stand, Murdaugh also admitted under oath to stealing from his legal clients and from his own law firm, the financial crimes that had, by this point, already become public knowledge. He admitted to asking a relative to shoot him in the staged roadside shooting the previous September. The prosecution's cross-examination began the same day. Waters pressed Murdaugh repeatedly on the inconsistencies between his recorded statements to police and his testimony in court, on why a man who claimed innocence had constructed so many demonstrably false stories in the immediate aftermath of his family's murder. Murdaugh finished testifying the following day. Judge Newman dismissed the jury immediately after his testimony concluded. The defense's final witnesses included a forensic pathologist who challenged the state's conclusions about the entry and exit wounds on Paul's body, and bloodstain pattern analyst Tim Palmbach, an expert who had previously testified in other high-profile murder cases, including the trial of Michael Peterson. Palmbach told the jury he believed whoever shot Maggie would have been covered in blood and gunshot residue. The state Murdaugh was not in when first responders arrived. Palmbach went further, testifying that in his expert opinion, the the opportunity to confront him directly in court. One former client and childhood friend, Jordan Jinks, looked at the man he had grown up with and asked him plainly, "What kind of animal are you?" By the end of 2023, Alex Murdaugh, once the heir to one of the most powerful legal dynasties in South Carolina history, was a convicted murderer and a convicted felon many times over, sentenced to spend the rest of his natural life behind bars. He had been formally disbarred by the South Carolina Supreme Court the previous year, the institution explicitly citing his own admissions of what it called unethical conduct across the breadth of his criminal charges. For most observers, the legal chapter of the Murdaugh saga appeared closed. The murder conviction stood. The financial crimes were resolved through guilty pleas. There seemed to be nothing left but the long, slow process of appeals that almost never succeeded. Assessing his credibility, after he had taken the stand in his own defense and admitted under oath to lying repeatedly about his whereabouts the night of the murders. In January of 2024, a hearing was held in Richland County, presided over by Judge Jean Toll, to determine whether Hill's conduct warranted a new trial. Hill, for her part, denied the jury tampering allegations through a filing submitted by state prosecutors. On January 29, 2024, Judge Toll issued her ruling. Murdaugh would not receive a new murder trial. Toll found that Hill had, in fact, made improper comments to jurors and described Hill as having been attracted by the siren call of celebrity. But Toll concluded that, despite this misconduct, there was insufficient evidence the comments had actually changed the outcome of the jury's deliberations. Murdaugh's defense team immediately announced they would appeal that ruling. Separately, Becky Hill faced her own legal consequences. She was charged with multiple crimes, including showing sealed court exhibits to a photographer during the trial and lying about it to a judge afterward, as well as perjury-related charges. She would later plead guilty to those charges and was sentenced to 1 year of probation. "There is no excuse for the mistakes I made," Hill told the court at her own sentencing. "I'm ashamed of them." Her book, Behind the Doors of Justice, was pulled from publication following allegations of plagiarism. For nearly 2.5 years, the question of whether Becky Hill's conduct was serious enough to overturn the most high-profile murder conviction in South Carolina, history sat unresolved, working its way through the appellate process. Then, on May 13, 2026, the South Carolina Supreme Court answered it. In a unanimous 27-page ruling released on May 13, 2026, the South Carolina Supreme Court overturned Alex Murdaugh's double murder convictions and his sentence of 2 consecutive life terms, ordering a new trial in the killings of Maggie and Paul. The opinion, signed by Chief Justice John W. Kittredge, along with Associate Justices John Cannon Few, George C. James Jr., D. Garrison Hill, and Letitia H. Verdon, did not mince words about the severity of what Becky Hill had done. The court found that Hill's conduct had egregiously attacked Murdaugh's credibility by suggesting to jurors that his testimony could not be trusted. Language the justices used to describe interference they called, in their own words, shocking. In one of the more pointed lines of the ruling, the justices wrote, "As her book's title suggests, it turns out Hill was quite busy behind the doors of justice, thwarting the integrity of the justice system she was sworn to protect and uphold." The court summarized its core finding plainly. Hill placed her fingers on the scales of justice. The ruling went further than the jury tampering issue alone. The justices also found that the trial judge, Clifton Newman, had erred by allowing too much evidence of Murdaugh's unrelated financial crimes into a trial that was, at its core, about whether he had committed murder. Evidence the justices found could have unfairly biased the jury against him on a separate and more serious set of charges. Taken together, the court concluded Murdaugh had been denied his constitutional right to a fair trial and ordered the case sent back for an entirely new trial. Not a retrial limited to specific issues, but a full restart of the legal process from jury selection forward. South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson responded the same day. His office, he said, would respect the court's decision, but added pointedly that no one is above the law, and vowed to retry Murdaugh on the murder charges as soon as possible. Murdaugh's defense attorneys, Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin, welcomed the ruling. Alex has said from day one that he did not kill his wife and son, they said in a statement. We look forward to a new trial conducted consistent with the Constitution and the guidance this court has provided. Eric Bland, an attorney representing several of Murdaugh's financial crime victims, offered a more weary reflection on what the ruling meant for the people who had already lived through one trial. They have forgiven Alex, Bland said of his clients, but they have not forgotten what he has done. They will go through the process again. It is important to understand precisely what the South Carolina Supreme Court's ruling did and what it did not do. It did not declare Alex Murdaugh innocent. It did not find that the evidence against him was insufficient. It found, specifically, that the process by which he was convicted had been compromised by the conduct of a court official acting in pursuit of her own commercial interests, and by a trial judge who allowed prejudicial evidence to reach the jury. Alex Murdaugh remains, as of this recording, in prison. He has not walked free. He is currently serving his 40-year federal sentence for financial fraud and money laundering, alongside his concurrent 27-year state sentence for separate financial crimes. Sentences that were resolved through guilty pleas, not contested at trial, and are entirely untouched by the Supreme Court's ruling on the murder case. What the ruling means, is that the murder case against him now starts over. Every piece of evidence the state presented in 2023, the mechanic video, the cell phone data, the vehicle telemetry, the staged shooting, the financial connects, Murdaugh's own admissions on the stand, will need to be presented again to a new jury under a process the courts have now determined must be free of the contamination that defined the first trial. On June 29, 2026, Circuit Court Judge Deborah McCaslin held a hearing in Lexington County and set the tentative trial date, April 5, 2027, nearly 6 years after Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were killed at Moselle. McCaslin noted that the exact date could shift depending on how long it takes to process DNA evidence, and that the Murdaugh case is now the oldest one on her docket. She made no rulings on several pending motions, including a request from the defense to change the questioning whether Alex Murdaugh, after years of relentless national publicity, can find an impartial jury anywhere in South Carolina. One detail underscores just how high the stakes of this retrial now are. Because the case is being treated as an entirely new trial rather than a limited retrial, prosecutors have indicated that all sentencing options are once again on the table, including, for the first time in this case, the death penalty. As this retrial approaches, several threads from the broader Murdaugh saga remain open, unanswered, or under continuing investigation. The death of Stephen Smith in 2015 remains officially classified as a homicide. No suspect has been charged. His exhumation and renewed autopsy, prompted by information uncovered during the Moselle murder investigation, have not yet produced a public resolution. The death of Gloria Satterfield in 2018 has never been formally reclassified as a homicide, and the central legal consequence to date has been the financial fraud conviction of Corey Fleming, the attorney Murdaugh recommended to her sons. The boating death of Mallory Beach continues to cast a long shadow over the entire case. The civil lawsuit tied to her death is, by most accounts, the single event most directly threatening to expose Alex Murdaugh's financial crimes in the weeks before the murders, and remains, in the eyes of prosecutors, central to establishing his motive. The Moselle estate itself has changed hands. The property's new